few weeks ago, I made a robot using Easter eggs. You can watch that video here. Now, I still have a few eggs left over, so I figured I would try to use them up before they all go bad. I'll use 2 egg bottoms to make a sphere, and I just have to sand away some of this plastic on each side so that they fit flush together. And this will be the shell armor for the main body. This little sphere owes some money to the chicken mafia, so I rough it up a bit. I also do that so that the paint sticks better. And now I have this solid ball. All I need to do is cut open a few holes for the torso, the arms, and the head. To start that process, I use a little blue tack and stick the ball to my cutting mat. I then use a Sharpie and a spacer to mark out the holes that I need to cut out. I repeat this a few more times for the arm and head holes, and for just eyeballing the symmetry, this actually worked out surprisingly well, and I only messed up on one measurement. And now comes the hard part. I thought about using my jeweler's saw to cut these holes out, but I ended up going with a cutoff wheel and my Dremel tool. I try and cut, leaving some extra plastic, and I'll use my sanding drum to refine the cut down to the drawn line. Probably the best tool for this would have been an ultrasonic cutting knife, but those things are like hundreds of dollars, and I don't have that budget right now. If you look beyond the mess of melted plastic, you can see I've reinforced the inner seams with a bit of EVA foam. That's because the plastic was starting to pop apart there with all the vibrations. I continue to clean up the edges with my Dremel tool, and I will also refine the shape a bit with my X-Acto knife. It's looking a lot better now, and you can start to see how this robot is going to come together. This will be part of the main body, and you can see how the shell is going to fit over it. We can start to actually build the rest of the robot now, and I'll start with the main body that will be covered by that shell armor I just made. I use a mix of Gundam parts and old modeled airplane bits to fill out the shape of the body. A lot of this is going to be covered up by that shell, so I'm not super worried about the details, but I do want a few mechanical looking parts that you'll be able to see from the right angle. This part here will act as the transition between the upper chest and the lower waist. This piece of clear plastic really isn't for visuals, it's just to fill in the space so that I have a bit more contact with the shell when I glue everything together. I do add a bit of 2-part epoxy to this just to hold everything in place. For the waist and pelvis, I'm just going to steal some from an old action figure, and I think at this point this one action figure has been parted out and donated to at least 3 other robots. And I'll use a few pieces of armature wire to secure everything in place. I add a few more greeblies to add detail and to fill out the space, and just like that, the main body is complete. You can see here how it's going to fit into the shell from the beginning. Okay, now let's build the head. I want the head to match the round spherical shape of the torso, so I start with this round wooden bead and I'll sand down the ends. Now this makes space for 2 of these model airplane parts. I don't know exactly what model they're from, but I know they're from an older model kit. And this is the overall shape of the head that I'm working with, and now I just need to add a few details. One of those details is the face, and for that I'm going to use the round part of a disposable contacts case. I place it against the head and then I draw out the face with a pen. The face was inspired by K2SO, who is my favorite Star Wars droid, and once it's drawn out, I just need to cut it out from the rest of the plastic. The notch from the mouth is drawn in a way to fit around this Gundam part, so I'll glue that in place before attaching the rest of the mask that I just made. Because the curve of the mask and the base bead is slightly different, I have to add a bit of 2-part epoxy putty to fill the gap. And before it has time to fully cure, I make sure to cut out any overspill and clear out the eye holes. I'll use another piece from that contacts lens container to fill in the space on the back of the head. I use the same technique as before, filling in the space with more 2-part epoxy putty. I'll use a couple pieces of plastic to fill out the cheek area, and I'll also add a few antennas to the top of the head. I wanted to add a bit of detail to the eyes without adding too much, so I just took a few small pieces of this copper tube and attached them inside. Part of the neck is made from one of these breakaway clasps, and then the actual neck itself is made from armature wire. For the arms, I'm going to start with this tube from a submersible model kit, and I'm going to cut off one end. I'll keep the other half close by though, since I'll be using it for the legs. Another model airplane part gets added to the tube, and this will make up the armor for the lower arm. Jumping back to these shoulders, I'll be using these plastic light bulbs from some outdoor battery lights. Unfortunately, the wires and the LED are stuck inside with glue, and I can't get them out, so I'll just have to work around that. The upper and lower arms are made from this plastic tubing, and everything gets attached with metal pins for strength. A bit of EVA foam is also used as a filler to add a bit more stability. You can see those wires and glue get in the way a bit, but with a bit of persuasion, I'm able to get everything together. Now for a bit of extra strength and detail, I add a section of heat shrink tubing around the arm. The wrist is made from one of these green caps, and I drill a hole in the middle the same size as the lower arm tube, and you'll see how this fits into the arm in just a second. For the hands, I'm just going to use some Gundam hands as they work well with this scale and they're already pre-made. I just have to add a little aluminum tube to this one because it fits inside the inner tube of the lower arm. And now I have one fully complete arm. I can make a second one to match, just for the opposite side, of course. The legs are made in a pretty similar way to the arms, just using different size tubes and beads. I'll be using old pen tubes, plus the other half of the tube from that submersible model that I cut in half to make the arm. The old plastic tube and bead trick has become my go-to when it comes to making arms and legs at these scales, and I do try to change it up now and again, but you know what they say. If it ain't broke, it probably will be soon because product quality has been artificially limited through planned obsolescence, forcing people to replace items instead of repairing them, and eventually even simple fixes become too expensive or impractical compared to buying something new, creating a cycle of unnecessary waste and constant consumption that benefits manufacturers more than it does consumers. I don't know, that doesn't sound right. I think it's if it ain't broke, don't fix it. For the feet, I'll be using these resin cast robot feet that I made a few weeks ago, and I'll just add a few modifications with some beads so that they transition into the legs better. The original foot this is cast from is from a broken Transformers toy, and it only had one foot left when I got it, but it was a really nice foot, so I decided that I would make a silicone mold of it so I can make quick and easy robot feet whenever I want. And I went through all the effort of making resin casts of this random foot because I don't really like making robot feet. For some reason, they are the hardest part of every build for me. And while I've been blathering on about robot feet and planned obsolescence, the leg has come together quite nicely. And here it is, complete, and now that I have one, I can make a second one to match. And as you can see, I'm keeping the kneecap separate for easy painting. Speaking of painting, let's get these parts ready for painting. I've added some wires to a few of these, and then I will attach them to my painting sticks and send them outside to get a coat of primer. This is an airbrush heavy paint job, and I'll start with this neutral gray to paint the hands as well as the interior torso parts. The rest of the bot will be painted with this yellow ochre, and it's a really nice earthy yellow color. And this is my first time using this Vallejo Mecha airbrush color, and I did have some issues with it clogging both of my airbrushes. I ended up having to thin it down a bit and add more layers than usual. It all turned out fine in the end, but I did want to mention that. Maybe I just got a bad batch here, who knows. I've had great success with other Vallejo products in the past, but this one just didn't work as well as usual. For the hand painting, I'm keeping it very simple and just painting the hands. I'm using that same yellow ochre as before, just to add a bit of extra detail. Speaking of extra detail, I add a few decals for good measure. Now, I was adding these decals at 2 in the morning, and at that time, these decals fit the space and looked pretty cool. Then in the morning, I was like, what do these decals even mean? AGAG? AAGG? GAGA? Gaga? Is an acronym or something? So I will leave that up to you as the viewer. If you have some idea and if you can come up with something cool behind the meaning of these letters and how they fit in with the bot, I would love to hear it down in the comment section. To make sure these decals are adhering to the rounded surface of the bot, I'm using a bit of microset, which helps soften the decals so it forms to the curvature better. It also improves adhesion, so that's a nice bonus. Once again, I cannot for the life of me make a clean and pristine bot, so let's get down to weathering. I start with a mix of these gray and brown quick-gen contrast paints, and I'll dilute it with a bit of water and isopropyl alcohol. This mixture is called a wash, and it gets slathered all over the parts like you're basting a beautifully delicious rotisserie chicken. Speaking of beautifully delicious rotisserie chickens, I think it's a great time to give a shout out to all my patrons over on my Patreon. In all seriousness though, thank you so much for your support. Because of you, I'm able to buy paints like this that I will continue to use as if I'm basting a beautifully delicious rotisserie chicken. And if you are enjoying this video, please do consider dropping a like, consider subscribing, commenting, sharing, all of that fun stuff that helps the YouTube algorithm pick up these videos and show them off to more people. And if you aren't enjoying them, I'm sorry. Thank you for staying this long, even though you're not enjoying it. The next weathering step is using this Tamiya Weathering Master Kit, which I will apply using a makeup sponge brush. Now, you may be asking why I do 2 different weathering steps, and that is a great question. You could use either one of these on their own and you would get a great simple weathering. But I use the wash first because it provides a layer of weathering over the entire model, focusing on the low points like the panel lines and between details. Now, this dry weathering is just another layer of grime and weathering, but it's more focused on the raised surfaces and faces of the parts. So they work well together or separate. This bot is a bit top heavy, so it's going to need a base to attach to. For that, I'll use this wooden plaque and some foam core board with the paper removed. I'll then use some foam safe superglue to attach the foam to the wood, and once it's cured, I can cut away the excess with a sharp knife. Once everything is cut down to size, it's a bit too smooth, so I'll use a torch in a well-ventilated area to add a bit more texture. To really boost the texture game, I mix up a batch of dirt with rock and dirt without rock, and some modeling paste, watered down Mod Podge, and a bit of calcium sulfate hemihydrate, also known as plaster of Paris. I mix it up into a paste, and then I spread it out over the base like I'm basting a beautifully delicious... No, I'm just kidding. It's actually more like I'm icing a cake or a cinnamon roll. But that's not all the texture we're going to give this. I'm also going to use a bristle brush and use a technique called stippling to add a bit more delicious texture. Once it's all dry, I carve 2 divots for the feet so that the bot looks like it's actually stepping into soft ground. Then I add another layer of Mod Podge water to seal it because it's going to get a coat of flat black primer and a highlight dusting of white. For color, it gets a few various coats of different brown washes and dry brushing. And I'll finish it off with a few little tufts of static grass. We're in the home stretch here and everything is ready for assembly. About halfway through assembly, I realized I hadn't done my chipping effects yet, so I'll use my chipping pen and add those now. This step isn't 100% necessary, but I think it adds a nice amount of detail and adds to the scale. And now that the chipping effects are done, I can get back to putting everything together. We're just a few seconds away from seeing the final product, so thank you all for watching, and I'll check back in at the end of the video. Hey, thanks for sticking around till the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. It was another fun bot build this week, and spoiler alert, next week there's another bot coming, and this one, I'll give you a hint. It's got more than 2 legs, but less than 10. So make sure you're subscribed to see what I'm talking about. As a reminder, if you have any fun ideas for who this bot is, what its story is, what the AGAG means on the back, please do let me know down in the comment section, and if you have any other comments, questions, or concerns, you can leave those down there as well. I do read every single comment, and I try to respond if I can. If you did enjoy what you saw today, I've got hundreds of other videos on my channel, so please do go and check those out if you've got some time. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next video.